We're sitting around a campfire. And naturally, the ghost stories begin. What's yours? One very dark morning in the deserts of New Mexico, I was arriving for an early shift at about 4 a.m. I worked a few miles from a site where they tested/experimented on monkeys. And some say secretly on prisoners during the Manhattan Project. Ghost stories in this area abound. However, I experienced it firsthand on this morning. As I was walking through the empty parking lot, I see something out of the corner of my eye standing near the east side of the building. I look up and there stood a man with glowing eyes. Knowing there are lots of glowing-eyed critters in the area, my brain immediately tried to explain this as an animal standing on its hind legs. Terrifying enough. But at least it's not a man, right? Wrong. This man/figure/ghost creature waved at me and then motioned for me to come that way. Obviously, the answer was "beep that." And I continued toward the entrance of the building, clutching the knife I had in my pocket. Suddenly, the figure begins to run at me. I freeze and stand ready to fight for my life. But just as the figure gets within about 20 feet of me, it vanishes. I was shaking from the adrenaline for about an hour, and this has stuck with me since that day. I still have a hard time walking anywhere in the dark. I'm home alone and it's hot inside, so I'm nude. I'm walking to get some food and I see a black figure walk by and scared the speep out of me. This happened earlier today. There's a body farm somewhere close by. Real close. And that's what they call it? The body farm. People die. Their lifeless bodies are interred into the grisly forest hideaway. Each is assigned an anonymous identification number. Some are situated to provide interesting decomposition vectors, while others are used to reconstruct specific circumstances for investigations. At any given time, several dozen bodies of perished persons are scattered around the hillside within automobiles, cement vaults, suitcases, plastic bags, shallow graves, pools of water, or deposited directly upon the earth. Except when clothing is necessary for a particular study, cadavers are disrobed. And frequently certain factors such as fire and chemicals are introduced to measure their effects. Then grad students from the nearby university and professors return periodically to check on their subjects' progress, with occasional visits from police officers or FBI agents. My grandfather once was walking through Baghdad in the 60s. As he was walking, he caught view of a Sufi order, and as they were dancing with prayer, a man gave another a dagger larger than any knife my father has ever seen and stabbed himself. Afterwards he continued to dance and pray with the others. Not scary story, but still, a Sufi order members usually don't stab selves while praying. Also huge dagger in chest, so yeah. Not mine but a friend's. When he was younger, he went to the bathroom and someone screamed at him, calling him stupid and to gargle 3 times. He asked his dad if he said, but he denied it. To this day he believes he is haunted by a dentist. Once I was home alone. There was a storm. Doors from the bathroom were opening and closing, and my cat was just staring at the door, and I saw random shadows sometimes I could hear footsteps. And I live in like 50-year-old house. It was built when my country was still part of USSR, and previous family moved out for some reason as quickly as possible. This happened to me while I was sitting on the side of a mountain in the middle of national forest. I was on an overlook, so below me it was rather steep. I have no explanation for this, but a rock the size of a football or watermelon flew through the air, coming in my general direction. It came from below me. How could a rock that size fly upwards at me? Back in '76 I was camping with my friends and fiancé in a local forest. It was a dark summer night. I went to get more firewood when I heard a horrid scream coming from our camp. I rushed towards it to see what was going on. I saw that our tents were torn. My friends nowhere to be seen, and the love of my life laying in a pool of blood. I was paralyzed. I couldn't move. When suddenly I felt a sharp pain in my side. I turned around and saw him. A tall dark figure in a work uniform. It was dark. I couldn't see his face. But I saw a horrid image I'll never forget. His empty eye socket stuffed with cotton. He tore the knife from my bleeding stomach and threw me on the ground. In the dying light of the campfire I saw the name tag on his clothes saying Joe. Before he could finish me off, the sound of approaching sirens scared him off. He kicked me in the head and stormed off in an unknown direction. I barely made it. I needed a blood transfusion. Sadly, the other victims didn't. Sally bled out. They found Josh strung up on a tree with his guts hanging out. Mark is still missing. The worst part is, if it hadn't been for Cotton Eye Joe, I'd been married long time ago. Where did you come from? Where did you go? Where did you come from? Cotton Eye Joe. Timber Lake Road. Where I live there's the cemetery where settlers were killed. A woman's children were murdered, so out of grief she hung herself. To this day she can be seen wandering the road searching for her if you drive into the cemetery and say, "I have your baby." People use more vulgar words added. Your vehicle won't be able to leave until she comes running screaming up to your vehicle. True ghost story. I've started calling him Peter. When I was little there was a night light on my wall. The light was just enough for me to see into the hallway, as the door was usually left open or cracked. I was always afraid of the hallway, since my room had a direct view of the bathroom mirror. One night as I lay in bed I start looking at the night light. It casts a bit of light up the wall it's attached to. As it should. However, directly above the night light was a shadow. It appeared male, but featureless. Even at a young age, you could tell that shadow couldn't be from the night light. After getting nervous and running across the house, one of my parents tucked me back into the bed. The shadow was gone. As I laid down fearful and peeked out from under the blanket, it was back. I slept with my parents that night, and hadn't seen the shadow again. The last person on earth sat in their room. There was a knock at the door. "We've been trying to reach you concerning your car's extended warranty." A light breeze in a cabin whistled by. As the silent night was dark, the moon shined brilliantly. Crunching of leaves were heard shortly after. But the cabin was fast asleep. Knocking wood of the walls was heard. But silence. The crunching was louder and louder. But the silence was even louder. They were never found after the crunching. They disappeared.